On today's episode of the DeRaud-Messinger Show, we're previewing and predicting Dylan number 24 Texas. How did they sneak back in there? Number 24 Texas versus number 13 Kansas State. Longhorns fans, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. It's greatly appreciated. Yeah, Dylan, I am not a rankings expert in how the Longhorns snuck back in there, but they are in there, and now they got some Kansas State action. And of course, as always, I start with some basic game info so you can find the stadium if you're driving to Kansas or watching on TV, which is maybe preferable with the nice couch, Dylan. But the game is on Saturday, the 5th of November at 6 p.m. Central Time at Bill Snyder Family Stadium, or Family Football Stadium, my apologies, in the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas. Dylan, we're getting old. Stadiums are named after coaches that we watched as kids. The game will be televised on Fox Sports 1. In Texas, Dylan, Texas is favored by 2.5 points. So let's have your scouting report, shall we?
And with these rankings, Devon, you're kind of seeing the college football playoff, coming to fruition here, where they're like, I test Texas, looking great, a lot of talent, but then when you watch Texas on the field, it's not looking like it should, especially last week. And then also, team Texas lost to in Oklahoma State just gets absolutely pounded by the team they're playing this week in Kansas State, Devon. So let's talk about kind of what happened there. Who started for them was actually junior QB Will Howard. I know Texas fans know him from last year, in which he struggled, had a few plays, kept the game close. I believe it was 21-17 in Texas's favor. But Will Howard looking like a whole nother beast this year, especially against Oklahoma State after they trounced them 48-0. He had 296 yards and 4 touchdowns, Devon, and the biggest thing was that confidence just to sling the ball around. It's going to be a coin flip between him and Adrian Martinez, who's actually, as a quarterback, number 6 in rushing in the Big 12. So if Adrian Martinez happens to play, that's something that they're going to need to account for. That's more of his strength versus Will Howard. So it's two kind of different QBs in a sense. So going to be interesting to see who kind of starts for Kansas State going into this game. But the main playmaker for Kansas State is going to be in that running back position, Devin. Minnie Mouse,
Stop.
Muscle Hamster. I don't know the
Uh,
nicknames here. I'm kind of just talking about, Maurice Jones-Drew kind of right now. But
Darren
still, he's number.
Sproles,
Yeah, exactly. Those guys. And
El
that's kind of.
Pequeño Nino, yeah.
Yeah. Number 2 in rushing in the Big 12, just behind Bijan Robinson by about 18 yards. He's got 902 yards on the season and 6
That's
touchdowns.
Deuce Vaughn, right?
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn. Sorry if I didn't say his name there. But he had 176 scrimmage yards and 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma State. He looked a lot healthier. So that kind of backfield power, especially if Adrian Martinez is playing that running game, it's going to be a lot on those linebackers and the guys up front for Texas. And those wide receivers, it's not Oklahoma State level receiving-wise. There's a lot of talent with Malik Knowles. I believe he's on like his 5th or 6th year right now, Devin. Been around for a while. Big 6'3" receiver. Got 32 receptions, 447 yards. He had over 100 yards receiving last week, so he was used in the game plan a lot more that, a lot of Wildcats fans were looking for him to be used this season. That kind of came to fruition last week. They've also got 5'7" receiver, another, quick little guy at 5'7", Phillip Brooks. He also had a great game last week, as well as wide receiver Cade Warner. He had 5 receptions, 97 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The 6'1" receiver for Kansas State last week. So, the receivers are there. Howard can really get them the ball, and they're being more involved, especially with his arm talent. And then, Devin, on that defense, just want to touch on that secondary for Kansas State. You've got cornerback Julian Brents leading the charge. He's a possible first-round pick, 6'4", can cover any wide receiver. He's got 2 interceptions and 2 pass deflects. So Worthy's going to have himself a day in the sense of this is a really good matchup to watch on that side. As well as, Devin, something for Texas to really be careful about with this defense. They are averaging around 2 turnovers per game, which I believe is one of the highest in the Big 12, if not the highest. And all those turnovers happen at home. So going into Manhattan, there's a lot there, especially in night game. Texas is going to have to really take care of the ball, Devin, here.
Yeah, no, definitely the Little Apple gets a little turned up at night, Dylan. As you know, the purple crowd, purple haze comes into full force. Just to kind of go over some of the points that you were talking about, Adrian Martinez, I believe, got injured at like the very start of that TCU game. As you said, Will Howard came into play afterwards. Martinez's stats, if he does decide to play, stats don't change prior to it though, Dylan. 907 passing yards and 4 touchdowns. If you're looking at that as a Longhorns fan, you're like, okay, nothing too insane passing wise. But as you said, as a rusher, he adds another 565 rushing yards and 9 touchdowns on the ground. So when they have Martinez, they have the Wildcat, in full effect with Martinez basically playing that position out there. But as you also said, when Will Howard's out there, Dylan, it's a completely different offense. They're able to throw the football as well. And then, of course, Deuce Vaughn. I mean, we were joking about the nicknames. I lovingly call him El Pequeño Niño because he's probably Dylan, maybe my favorite player in college football. He's just so entertaining to watch out there. He's, just slippery. He's like a Christian McCaffrey guy out there. He already has 1,000+ all-purpose yards this season. Touchdown-wise, only 6. I mean, yet again, only 6 is kind of a hard statement to make when you're playing Power 5 football. But I feel like Deuce is, one to find the end zone quite often. So, you might pump those numbers up against Texas, Dylan. Unfortunately for Steve Sarkisian's staff, but we'll see. And then wide receivers, as you mentioned, you have Knowles, Brooks, and Warner. Just fun fact, Dylan, Cade Warner is Kurt Warner's son. I don't know if you knew that, but yet again, everybody, it's time to feel old. That's why I brought that up. And then on defense, Dylan talked about the secondary. The leading tackler, Dylan, no surprise, is in that linebacker core. You got junior Austin Moore leading the way with 55 tackles. And then Dylan, pass rush. Longhorns fans haven't had to fear a pass rush in too long, although I think Oklahoma State got some pressure, not as infrequently as some other teams that the Longhorns have played, but yet again, pressure didn't really factor into the game, ironically enough, against Oklahoma State. But Dylan, the Kansas State defensive end is going to make me pronounce his name here. We always love that portion of the show. We got Felix Anudike Uzama. There you go, right? 7.5 sacks. Yeah, you're impressed, right? 7.5 sacks, Dylan, in so far this season in a huge conference like the Big 12. That's pretty impressive. He's, a 6'4" guy on that line. Someone that young Texas offensive line who's, yet again, done well so far this season is going to have to be watching out for. And then also, as you were talking about that secondary and turnovers, Dylan, they've forced 11 interceptions this season, which is, I did some research, tied for 9th in the NCAA. So, yes, they forced a lot, which, as you said, Worthy's going to have his, day cut out for him. But also, conversely, Steve Sarkisian's preached the need for a consistent third wide receiver target for Quinn Ewers, which we haven't really seen. We've seen some Casey Kane action, but Kane has not, produced entirely. He's had some unfortunate drops. So will this weekend be the day where he shows up against a good secondary? I guess we'll see. But Dylan, what do you think about these X factors?
Yeah, Devon. I mean, with this Kansas State defense, we talk about the secondary, we talk about Uzama up front, but we really need to talk about is that linebacking core for Kansas State. That's going to be kind of where the game can kind of flip. Just based off this defense, Bijan is and Roshan with that power running style are really going to have to attack this linebacking core to make it easier on Quinn Ewers, maybe possibly set up that play action to draw those safeties and corners in, so you can kind of allow Worthy to get that separation rather than Brent's kind of jamming him at the line, making him kind of like lean off, or allowing Worthy actually more just to get around him if he were to come up. So that's something to watch. I mean, they got an injured leader and at the linebacker spot in Daniel Green. I don't know if he's gonna be back for this game. That's something to watch. So that those young core of Nick Allen, Jake Clifton, and Khalid Duke, those are guys that are gonna have to really key in on Robinson and force Texas to be more one-dimensional in that passing game to allow kind of the strength in their team with Uzama up front, putting his ears back and attacking the rusher, and those cornerbacks benefiting off possibly errant throws and just those shots downfield that Ewers might have to take and forcing those bad decisions. And on the Texas side, Devin, to prevent that, you're going to have to talk about that offensive line. There was holding calls that brought back big plays, especially that Ewers run that he had to possibly kind of put Texas into scoring position against Oklahoma State last week. That was called back. A lot of untimely false starts. And like I said, KSU has a strong secondary. That running game is going to need to be strong, kind of getting pushes up front for Robinson to get 3 yards before he really gets hit or runs into contact, and also giving Ewers time in the pocket. Ewers is going to have to take what this Kansas State defense gives him. So if he's having to rush throws, he might fall into kind of what happened last week or the week prior to that, in which he's making throws into tight windows, double coverage, and kind of just allowing the secondary to make a play. And Kansas State shows that they can make those plays.
Yeah, and we've talked about, Kansas State having that balanced defense overall. So Ewers definitely going to be facing challenges at multiple levels of that defense. As you talked about, Uzama, is going to be in his face, testing that offensive line, along with, honestly, a plethora of other Wildcats on that front. I believe, Dylan, I didn't want to do the math there, but it looked like there's at least 10 Wildcats with at least a sack. Multiple guys having multiple sacks as well. So Ewers definitely going to be facing some mixed coverages there. And, my X factor overall, Dylan, was Quinn Ewers. I mean, it's no, secret when he does well, the Longhorns do well. And when he doesn't do so well, and the one game evidence that we have so far of that, it hasn't turned out their way. Quinn Ewers completed under 50% of his passes. I believe he was about 19 for 49, Dylan. I believe, yet again, don't quote me on that, in, attempts and completions there. It just wasn't a pretty game for him against Oklahoma State. I know it was a little bit windy, Dylan, but, he didn't make any excuses for himself, and we won't either. But still, yet again, 3 interceptions, as you said. One was off Jatavian Sanders' hands, Dylan. It kind of hurt our soul, covering him in high school football. Like, I don't think I've ever seen him drop a pass, just a beautiful tight end out there, but just wasn't having it at the final drive. But yet again, Quinn Ewers, Dylan's got to be patient. As you're talking about, Kansas State has good corners. Worthy is going to have a tough day. He's going to have to be able to find his guys and show that during this bye week he's had some time to, gain some rapport with some receivers, such as the Casey Kane that I mentioned. Jordan Whittington is going to be pretty important in this game. And yet again, Sanders has a good chance to, make up for his final drop in an otherwise great season so far from that tight end position. Now, Dylan, danger level, how are you feeling about the Little Apple?
I got that danger level at 10, Devon. It's that road, kind of experience going into Manhattan that we talked about. This is a defense that creates all of their turnovers at home. They're a whole different team. Everyone plays better in these kind of situations for them. Also, just kind of like the mistakes that Texas made doesn't give me a lot of confidence going into this one. I still do believe it'll be close. But, I mean, there was a play, Devin, I think it was third quarter, time's running out, and Ewers snaps the ball when they didn't need to. Muff snap, lose yardage, go back into the fourth quarter, and it's like 3rd and 12, 3rd and 9 around, just 3rd and long in general. And they don't get the first down, and that just kind of summed up the game in the sense of allowing Oklahoma State back into it. So just a lot of those coaching issues and, decision-making from players giving me great confidence going into Manhattan, Devin. That's why I have it at a 10. And Will Howard looking good. The only drawback is if he does start, is he going to regress back into last year's form? Was last game kind of a fluke, or has he figured something out in his career that he's going to be carrying out through the season? So few question marks, but just what Texas has done in prior weeks, I don't know if they have the ability to, if they get out to a lead, maintain that lead and make it so the opponent doesn't really have a chance to get back into it.
Yeah, that's fair. And as you said, Howard has a small sample size so far this season. He does already have a good amount of passing yards, 521. And as you said, some good performances just filling in for Martinez in the last 2 weeks. However, Dylan, as you said, Texas can get the best out of you or the worst out of you at times. Howard, not the greatest of performances last season. However, yet again, has looked like a different quarterback. I'm giving it a 9, though. It's just, Dylan, we knew after the Red River game that this would be a rough stretch of games for Texas, starting with Oklahoma State. Of course, the Oklahoma State game was not the greatest if you're a Longhorns fan. Quinn Ewers, wasn't too great out there. The whole team, the penalties galore. Still 0 penalties on Oklahoma State. Well, we can get past that. But a little fishy. But yet again, Kansas State is not a team to scoff at. As Dylan mentioned it earlier, but I just want to reiterate, this is a team in the Wildcats that just beat Oklahoma State, who beat Texas, as we've been saying here, 48-0, Dylan. Kansas State, 48-0. This is not a team to, look down upon for certain. That's why they're the 13th ranked team in the country. And the home game, as Dylan said, apparently there's some turnover magic there. I'll give it a 9. Now, Dylan, prediction, what are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at that spread at -2.5 in favor of Texas, it makes you wonder, like, why are they favored here, especially if you're a Texas fan. But, I mean, the talent's there. But, Devin, I'm going with Kansas State 30-24 in a win. They're at home. This is a tough environment. Texas is kind of reeling after the Oklahoma State game. They are coming off a bye, so we'll see what kind of their game plan is. The script, the first 10 plays of this game looks for Texas. But I just feel like the breakdown, further into the game just favors Kansas State when Texas kind of might try to make plays happen rather than what's given to them. And then that's where Kansas State kind of will take over the game, especially with Deuce Vaughn being able to make plays, make linebackers miss, and just being an all-around threat whenever he, moves around the field, however Kansas State wants to use him. And just Texas struggling against an Oklahoma State team that it looked like they were better than, but ended up losing. And then Kansas State comes out here with a backup quarterback and demolishes them the following week. I think it was in Stillwater, right?
I'd have to double check, but, either way, for Texas, not a great look.
The clip of the backup quarterback for Oklahoma State, shaking like it. The defense was very, very strong for Kansas State, as well as that offense just racking up points, getting those receivers involved. I mean, so we'll see. That's why I'm going 30-24, Devin. And that running game for Texas is going to be that deciding factor of if I'm wrong or not.
Yeah, I mean, if Bijan, can carry the load here and be a LeBron James sort of player like he seems to be most weeks, it's going to be a lot easier for Quinn Ewers passing-wise, complementary football. However, Dylan, football is a game of more than one player, of course. I also have Kansas State winning. I have 37-34. Dylan, my main thing is I refuse to pick Texas 2 weeks in a row after, what we've seen this season. Just been a tale of, two sides of a coin. And at times we've gotten the good side, and at times, fans have gotten the other side. And another thing to note here is that, Texas, has their fair share of struggles, and they have particular traits that they have a difficult time dealing with on defense. One of those is running quarterbacks, Dylan. If Martinez is in the game for Kansas State off of the injury, he's going to, present some challenges for that Longhorns defense just with his sheer running ability, which, as we said, Dylan, as you were talking about, one of the top rushers in the conference, ironically enough, from that quarterback position. However, Dylan, the other side of that, the flip side, because I'm just mentioning coins all the time here, is Will Howard, as we've talked about, has been able to pass the football with ease so far this season in filling in for Martinez these last couple of weeks. And Texas has a banged-up secondary, Dylan. Ryan Watts is still questionable, I believe, at best. I haven't heard too much about him. Sark, just said that they're getting healthier as time goes on, which is true. I hope so, at least. And then you got Anthony Cook, who I'm a little more worried about because he has a broken arm, so extremely doubtful to play in this game. He's probably out for a couple of weeks. So those are two, pretty big-name guys in that Texas secondary. If Howard is out there, expect them to gun for the backups at those positions. And if Martinez is out there, expect a lot of running, of course, but they're still going to try to test that Texas secondary. Yet again, we'll see.
Impact that game, Devin. And then side note, to fact check myself, the game was in Kansas State, so I was way off there. Not in Stillwater. Sorry to everybody.
You just got a little excited.
Here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kansas State, Dylan, we've watched our fair share of games there from the Colin Klein days, who now is the offensive coordinator, Dylan, for K-State. Fun fact. But it's going to be an interesting matchup for the Longhorns against the Wildcats, especially when Deuce Vaughn, Dylan, I'm sure, is still harboring a little bit of inner anger at the Longhorns for refusing to recruit the Austin area native, So we'll see. But more importantly than our picks, who do you have in this game, and what's your score prediction? Let us know down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, have a great rest of your day.